I sat there in the backyard, the evening light fading behind the palm trees, and heard my daughter's voice drift through the open kitchen window. "Mom's too old for this," Jessica said with that dismissive laugh I'd been hearing more and more lately. "I mean, can you imagine her trying to keep up with us in Bali? She'll just slow us down." My hand froze on the wine glass I'd been holding. Too old. At 58. Too old to travel with my own family. The next morning I booked a first-class ticket to Hawaii. Not for the family trip Jessica was planning. Just for me. Alone. Because if there's one thing I've learned in my 58 years on this earth, it's that you teach people how to treat you. And I was done teaching my children that their mother's dreams came last. My name is Evelyn Parker, and for the past 30 years, I've been the woman who made everything happen. Every family vacation from the time Jessica was 3 and Thomas was 5 I planned. Every birthday party, every holiday gathering, every anniversary celebration, I organized, I coordinated, I booked, I paid for half of it even when my ex-husband was supposed to cover his share. I was the backbone, the glue, the woman who held it all together even after the divorce 12 years ago. And somewhere along the way I became invisible. Not the fun mom, not the adventurous woman I used to be, but just mom. The person who made things happen for everyone else but who apparently was too old to have adventures of her own. The comment hit me harder than it should have. Maybe because it wasn't the first time. Maybe because I'd been feeling it for months now, this subtle shift in how my own children saw me. Not as Evelyn, the woman who backpacked through Europe in her 20s, who learned to scuba dive at 40, who started her own graphic design business from scratch after the divorce. Just as mom, capital M, and apparently now old mom at that. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. Started about 6 months ago, right after my birthday. Jessica had thrown me a party, lovely gesture truly, but the theme was practically a funeral for my youth. Over-the-hill balloons, black decorations, jokes about walkers and reading glasses. Everyone laughed. I laughed too because that's what you do, right? You're supposed to be a good sport about getting older. But it stung. Especially when Jessica posted photos on social media with captions like, "Mom's officially ancient," and "RIP Mom's youth." I'd smiled in those pictures but inside something cracked. Then came the comments. Little things mostly. When I mentioned wanting to try the new climbing gym downtown, Jessica wrinkled her nose. "Mom, isn't that kind of, I don't know, young? You might hurt yourself." When I bought a leather jacket I'd been eyeing for months, a beautiful cognac-colored piece that made me feel like myself again. Thomas asked if I was having a midlife crisis. "You're past midlife, Mom," he'd said with a laugh that made it sound like a joke but felt like a judgment. The worst part was the trips. I've always loved to travel. Before kids, Richard and I went everywhere: Thailand, Morocco, Peru. After the divorce, I promised myself I'd get back to it. I did a river cruise through Germany 2 years ago. A girls' trip to Napa Valley last year. I had plans, dreams of seeing Japan, of hiking Patagonia, of finally making it to New Zealand. But lately, when I mentioned travel, my kids exchanged looks. Those looks that parents usually give each other over their children's heads. The ones that say, "We'll talk about this later," or "Let's humor her." 3 months ago, Jessica announced she was planning a family trip to Bali for Christmas. She'd been talking about it for weeks: the temples, the beaches, the yoga retreats. She'd even created a group chat called Bali or Bust, and added her brother, his wife Monica, and her own husband Dave. I noticed I wasn't in the chat. When I asked about it over Sunday dinner at their house, Jessica hesitated. "Oh, well, it's going to be pretty adventurous, Mom. Lots of scooter rides, some hiking, staying in these rustic beach bungalows." I just thought, you might be more comfortable somewhere with better amenities, like a cruise or something. Thomas nodded, backing up his sister like always. "Yeah, Mom, no offense, but Bali's kind of rough around the edges. Maybe you'd prefer something more relaxed? More your speed." My speed. Like I was a car stuck in first gear. I'd swallowed my hurt and changed the subject. But I started paying more attention after that. And once I noticed the pattern, I couldn't stop seeing it. Jessica stopped inviting me to her gym classes. "They're pretty intense, Mom. Maybe try the senior water aerobics at the community center." Senior water aerobics. I wasn't even 60 yet. Thomas stopped asking me to join him and Monica at concerts. "It's going to be standing room only, and it gets pretty crowded. You wouldn't enjoy it." When my book club planned a weekend trip to a literary festival in Portland, Jessica actually asked if I needed her to come along to help me manage. Manage what? I'd been traveling before she was born. But I kept quiet. I smiled. I played the role they seemed to want me to play. The mom who stayed home, who babysat their future kids, who existed to serve their lives while mine quietly faded into something beige and forgettable. Until that night in the backyard. Until I heard my daughter's voice through the window, talking to Dave like I was a burden. An inconvenience. Too old. I finished my wine in one long swallow and went inside. Jessica was chopping vegetables at the kitchen counter, completely unaware I'd heard anything. She smiled at me, that bright smile that used to warm my heart but now felt performative. Hey Mom. I was just telling Dave about the Bali trip. We're thinking late December, maybe the 23rd through New Year's. That way Thomas and Monica can join for Christmas, and we'll ring in the new year on the beach. Doesn't that sound amazing? Sounds wonderful, I said carefully. Am I invited? The briefest pause. Dave suddenly became very interested in his phone. Jessica's knife slowed on the cutting board. Of course you're invited, Mom. You're always invited to family things. I thought you might not be interested. You know, with all the travel logistics and everything, it's going to be a lot of moving around. I've traveled before, Jessica. I know, Mom. I just mean. She set down the knife. You're at a different stage of life now. There's no shame in that. Some people prefer comfort over adventure as they get older. It's natural. As they get older. Like I was already 1 foot in the grave. I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, successful 33-year-old daughter who I'd raised to be confident and strong, who I'd supported through college and her first job and her wedding, and I didn't recognize her. When had I become someone she pitied? When had I become someone to manage rather than include? You think I'm too old, I said quietly. Mom, that's not. You think I can't keep up. That I'll slow you down. That I should stay home and… What? Wait for you to visit? Babysit your kids when you have them? Just fade into the background of my own life. Jessica's face flushed. You're being dramatic. I'm just trying to be considerate of your limitations. My limitations? I was 58 years old, in good health, financially secure, and free of obligations for the first time in 3 decades. And my daughter saw me as limited. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply said goodnight and drove home to my quiet townhouse, the one I'd bought after the divorce, the one I'd decorated exactly how I wanted, with bright colors and art from my travels and none of Richard's boring brown furniture. I poured another glass of wine, opened my laptop and started searching. Not for cruises. Not for senior-friendly resorts or guided tours with other mature travelers. I searched for adventure. For life. For proof that 58 wasn't the end of anything but rather the beginning of something new. Hawaii popped up first. I'd been once years ago with Richard. We'd stayed in Waikiki, barely left the resort, spent most of our time arguing about his work calls and my desire to actually explore. It hadn't been a good trip. But now I saw different possibilities. Surfing lessons in Maui, helicopter tours over active volcanoes, sunrise hikes at Haleakala National Park, snorkeling with sea turtles, ziplining through rainforests. I clicked on a boutique hotel in Wailea. Adults only, right on the beach, with yoga classes and spa services but also adventure packages. The photos showed women my age looking vibrant and alive. Not sitting in rocking chairs but doing things. Living. The price made me wince for a second. It was expensive. But then I thought about all the money I'd spent over the years on other people. On Jessica's wedding. On helping Thomas with his down payment. On family vacations where I paid more than my share because it was easier than fighting about it. I booked 10 days. First-class flight. Oceanfront suite. Every adventure package they offered. The confirmation email arrived at 11:47 p.m. I stared at it, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I was doing this. I was actually doing this. I didn't tell anyone that night. I wanted to sit with it first, this decision that felt both petty and profound. Was I being childish? Booking an expensive solo trip just to prove a point? But as I lay in bed, I realized it wasn't about proving anything to Jessica or Thomas or anyone else. It was about proving something to myself. Proving that I wasn't done. That I wasn't ready to fade into the background and become the boring, predictable, limited version of myself that my children seemed to expect. I fell asleep thinking about blue water and warm sand and the freedom of doing exactly what I wanted, when I wanted, with no one to consider but myself. The next morning I called Jessica. She answered on the third ring, sounding distracted. "Hey Mom, what's up? I'm just heading into a meeting. I'll be quick. I wanted to let you know, I won't be around for Thanksgiving this year." Silence. Then, "What? Mom, you always host Thanksgiving." "I did. Past tense. This year I'll be in Hawaii." More silence. I could picture her face, the confusion, the disbelief. "Hawaii? By yourself?" "Yes, by myself. I booked it last night. I leave the week before Thanksgiving and I'll be back the first week of December." "But why?" The question almost made me laugh. "Why? 'Cause I wanted to. Because I could. Because I was tired of waiting for permission to live my own life. Because I felt like it," I said simply. "You'll have to make other plans for Thanksgiving. Maybe Thomas can host." "Mom, this isn't like you. Is everything okay? Is everything okay?" As if the only reason a woman my age would travel alone was because something was wrong. "Everything's fine, Jessica. Better than fine. I'm excited. But Hawaii is. I mean, it's so far. And you'll be alone. What if something happens? What if something happens? I'm going to Hawaii, not climbing Everest. People my age travel all the time." "I know, but..." She paused, and I could hear her choosing her words carefully. "Have you talked to anyone about this? Like a therapist or something?" Why would I need a therapist to book a vacation? It just seems sudden. And kind of impulsive. "That's not like you, Mom." There it was again. "Not like you." As if they'd decided who I was and any deviation from that script required professional intervention. "Maybe you don't know me as well as you think," I said, keeping my voice level. "I have to go, sweetie. Lots to plan. Talk soon." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt good. Powerful. Like I'd reclaimed something I hadn't even realized I'd lost. Within an hour my phone was ringing. Thomas this time. "Mom, Jessica called me. She's worried about you." "I'm fine, Thomas. She said you're going to Hawaii alone for Thanksgiving." "That doesn't sound fine. That sounds like you're going through something." "I'm going through my 50s, Thomas. And apparently, according to my children, that means I should just give up on having any fun or adventure in my life." "That's not fair, Mom. We've never said that." "Haven't you? When's the last time you invited me to do something you actually wanted to do? Not just something you thought was appropriate for old Mom." He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was defensive. "We include you in plenty of things. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, babysitting when you need it. But concerts, hiking trips, that weekend in Vegas for your buddy's bachelor party? Somehow, I'm never on the list for those. Because you wouldn't enjoy them." "How do you know? Did you ask?" Another pause. "Mom, come on. You're being unreasonable. We're just trying to be considerate." "No, you're trying to put me in a box labeled elderly mother. And I don't fit in that box yet. Maybe I never will." "No one's calling you elderly. Jessica called me too old. Last night in her kitchen. I heard her tell Dave that I was too old to go to Bali with you all. Too old, Thomas. At 58. Silence. Then. She didn't mean it like that." "How did she mean it then?" "She just..." "Look, Bali's not exactly a relaxing vacation. We're planning to do a lot of activities. It wouldn't be fair to make you keep up with us." "Make me keep up? Or you're worried I'll slow you down?" "That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. And you know what? Fine. Go to Bali. Have a wonderful time. I'll be in Hawaii, having my own wonderful time, proving to myself if no one else that I'm not ready to be put out to pasture." "Mom, I love you, Thomas, but I need to do this. For me. Not to prove anything to you or your sister, but to prove something to myself. Can you understand that?" A long sigh. "I think you're overreacting, but if this is what you want..." "It is." "Okay. Just be careful, all right? And text us when you land." "I will." "And Thomas? Maybe think about why the idea of your mother having an adventure bothers you so much. Maybe ask yourself what that says about how you see me. I hung up feeling exhausted but vindicated. The rest of the day brought text messages from both kids, gentle at first, then increasingly concerned, then finally a bit accusatory. Jessica sent a long message about how she felt attacked and misunderstood, how she'd only ever tried to protect me, how I was being hurtful by suggesting she saw me as old. I didn't respond. Instead, I started planning my trip in earnest. I bought a new swimsuit, a one-piece, yes, but in a vibrant coral color with a plunging back that made me feel sexy. I ordered hiking boots and a rash guard for snorkeling. I downloaded apps for learning basic Hawaiian phrases. I researched the best shave ice stands and the hidden beaches locals loved. My friend Margaret called, having heard through the grapevine, Jessica, no doubt, about my sudden trip. "Good for you," she said immediately, which made me want to cry with relief. "It's about damn time you did something just for yourself. You don't think I'm being petty?" "Petty? Evelyn, I've watched you martyr yourself for those kids for 30 years. You think you're being petty by taking one solo vacation? Please. If anything, you're being too patient." "Jessica thinks I need therapy." Margaret laughed, sharp and loud. "Jessica needs therapy if she thinks there's something wrong with her 58-year-old mother traveling alone. My God, Ev, our mother's generation would laugh themselves sick at this. When my mom was your age, she was leading hiking trips through the Rockies. Your own mother was volunteering in Guatemala, remember? She was right. My mother at 58 had been more alive than I'd been feeling lately. She'd traveled, she'd taken classes, she'd had gentlemen friends after my father died. She'd lived. When had I stopped living and started just existing in service to everyone else?" "Thank you," I told Margaret. "I needed to hear that. You need to hear a lot of things. You need to hear that you're allowed to have a life. That your kids are adults now and their comfort is not your responsibility. That you can be a mother and still be Evelyn, whoever Evelyn wants to be." After we hung up, I sat with that thought. Whoever Evelyn wants to be. When was the last time I'd asked myself what I wanted? Not what would make my kids happy, not what would keep the peace, but what would light me up inside. The answer came quickly: adventure, freedom, possibility, the feeling of being fully alive instead of half asleep. I spent the next week preparing for my trip and dealing with my children's reactions, which ranged from concerned to annoyed to passively aggressive. Thomas sent articles about solo female travelers being scammed or getting lost. Jessica sent me links to senior-friendly group tours of Hawaii, complete with daily schedule breakdowns and medical support staff. Both of them seemed genuinely unable to comprehend that I might actually want to be alone, that solitude could be a choice rather than a consolation prize. "But what will you do all by yourself?" Jessica asked during one of her increasingly frequent check-in calls. "Whatever I want," I said. "That's the point. Don't you think you'll be lonely?" "I don't know. Maybe. Maybe lonely is better than feeling invisible in a crowd of my own family." That shut her up for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small. "Is that really how you feel? Invisible?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Lately, more than sometimes." "I never meant to make you feel that way." "I know you didn't. But intent isn't the same as impact, sweetie. You might not have meant to, but comments about my age, about what's appropriate for me, about whether I can keep up, they add up. They make me feel like you see me as less than I am. I just worry about you." "I know. But there's a difference between worrying about someone and limiting them because of your own fears." She didn't respond to that. We ended the call with an awkward exchange of love yous that felt more obligatory than heartfelt. The days before my departure were a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation. Part of me wanted to cancel the whole thing, to show up for Thanksgiving like always, to smooth things over with my kids and pretend the past few weeks hadn't happened. But a louder part, the part that had been growing stronger since that night I heard Jessica call me too old, refused to back down. This trip had become about more than just 10 days in Hawaii. It had become a line in the sand, a declaration that I was still the author of my own life. The night before my flight, I packed my new suitcase with my new clothes and my sense of adventure. Margaret came over with champagne. "To Evelyn," she toasted, raising her glass. "May she remember who she is and never forget again." We drank, and I felt the weight of the past weeks lift slightly. Whatever happened in Hawaii, I was doing this for me. And that was enough. I landed in Maui just after 1 p.m. the warm air hitting me like an embrace as I stepped off the plane. The airport smelled like plumeria and sunshine and possibility. I collected my luggage, picked up my rental car, a convertible because why not, and drove south toward Wailea with the top down and the radio playing songs I actually liked instead of the family-friendly playlists I usually defaulted to. The hotel was stunning. My room wasn't just a room. It was a suite with a lanai overlooking the ocean, a soaking tub, and a king-size bed piled with pillows. It was decorated in soft whites and blues, with local art on the walls and fresh orchids on the nightstand. I stood on the lanai and looked out at the Pacific Ocean, watching waves roll in under a perfect blue sky, and I burst into tears. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Freedom tears. The tears of a woman who had forgotten what it felt like to put herself first, and was just now remembering. I cried for about 5 minutes, letting it all out, the hurt, the frustration, the anger, the fear that maybe my kids were right and I was too old for this. Then I washed my face, changed into my new swimsuit and a cover-up, and went down to the beach. The sand was warm between my toes. The water was impossibly blue. I waded in up to my knees, then my waist, then I dove under a wave and came up laughing. When was the last time I'd laughed like that? Pure, uncomplicated joy? I couldn't remember. And that realization, more than anything, told me I'd made the right decision. That first evening I sat alone at a beachfront restaurant, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I ordered mai tais and fresh fish and coconut cake, and I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I texted my kids a photo of the sunset with a simple message. Arrived safe. It's beautiful. Jessica responded immediately. Looks amazing. Are you okay? Thomas. Glad you made it. Have fun. I put my phone away and went back to watching the sun sink into the ocean. The next day I had surfing lessons scheduled. I almost canceled 3 times that morning, convinced I'd make a fool of myself. But I showed up at the beach at 8 a.m., where a deeply tanned instructor named Kai greeted me with easy enthusiasm. First time? He asked. First time in about 30 years, I admitted. I used to surf a little in my 20s, before kids and responsibilities and life. He grinned. Well, today's the day you get it back. Come on, let's find you a board. For the next 2 hours I fell off that board more times than I could count. Salt water went up my nose. I got tumbled by waves. I probably looked ridiculous, flailing around in the water like a teenager instead of a woman approaching 60. And I didn't care. Not even a little bit. Because in the moments when I actually caught a wave, even if it was just for 3 seconds before I wiped out, I felt alive. Completely, utterly, gloriously alive. Kai was patient and encouraging, treating me like any other student rather than making accommodations for my age. He pushed me to try harder waves, to paddle faster, to trust myself. You've got this, Evelyn, he'd shout from the water. Stop overthinking. Just feel it. Just feel it. When had I stopped doing that? When had everything become so calculated and careful? By the end of the lesson, I was exhausted and exhilarated and sunburned despite the SPF 50 I'd slathered on. I'd actually ridden 3 waves all the way to shore. 3 waves that belonged entirely to me. You're a natural, Kai said as we carried the boards back to the rack. Same time tomorrow? Really? You think I should keep going? He looked at me like I'd asked if the sky was blue. Why wouldn't you? You loved it. I could tell. I did, I admitted. I really did. Then tomorrow we'll work on your pop-up. You're strong enough. You just need to trust your body more. I signed up for the rest of the week. That afternoon, I treated myself to a massage at the hotel spa. The therapist was a woman about my age named Leilani, who told me about moving to Maui from Oahu 5 years ago after her divorce. Best decision I ever made, she said as she worked knots out of my shoulders. My kids thought I was crazy. Thought I should stay close to them, help with the grandkids. But I needed something for me, you know? Just for me. I know exactly what you mean, I said. They adjusted. Visited more than they would have if I'd been 20 minutes away. And I got my life back. You can love your children without sacrificing yourself to them. Her words stayed with me as I floated in the pool afterward, the sun warm on my face. You can love your children without sacrificing yourself to them. It seemed so obvious when someone else said it, yet I'd spent decades acting as if the opposite were true. That night I dressed up. A sundress I'd bought specifically for this trip, strappy sandals, the turquoise earrings Richard had bought me in New Mexico years ago that I'd stopped wearing after the divorce because they felt too happy. I went to the hotel's nicest restaurant and sat at the bar, ordering wine and talking to the bartender about his recommendations. A couple about my age sat down next to me. They were from Seattle, celebrating their 35th anniversary with 3 weeks in Hawaii. Just the two of you? The woman, Diane, asked. Just me, I said. Her eyes lit up. Oh, how wonderful. I've always wanted to do a solo trip. Diane's never gone anywhere without me. Her husband, Robert, said with a laugh. I'm not sure I'd survive. You'd survive, Diane said, patting his hand. You just eat nothing but takeout and wear the same shirt 3 days in a row. We talked for over an hour. They told me about their kids, for between them all adults now, and their grandchildren and their recent retirement. They asked about my trip and I found myself telling them the truth. About Jessica's comment about feeling invisible, about needing to prove to myself that I wasn't finished yet. Good for you, Diane said firmly. My mother always said that the day you stop having adventures is the day you start dying. And you're clearly not dying. Some days I'm not sure, I admitted. Some days I think maybe my kids are right. Maybe I should act my age. Act your age. Robert laughed. What does that even mean? My father ran his first marathon at 62. My aunt learned to paint at 70 and sold her first piece at 73. Age is just a number that other people use to try to limit you. We exchanged contact information before parting ways, promising to stay in touch. Walking back to my room that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, possibility. Not for some distant future, but for right now, for tomorrow, for the rest of my life. The days fell into a rhythm. Surfing lessons every morning with Kai, who was slowly becoming a friend rather than just an instructor. We talked between sets about his life. He was 28, working on his master's in marine biology, surfing to pay the bills, and mine. He didn't judge. He didn't make assumptions about what I should or shouldn't do. He just treated me like a person. Afternoons I spent exploring. I drove the road to Hannah, stopping at waterfalls and fruit stands and overlooks. I hiked through bamboo forests and stood beneath cascading water. I ate banana bread still warm from the oven and fresh poke from roadside stands. I went ziplining, my heart in my throat as I stepped off the platform and flew through the canopy. The guide, a young woman named Malia, whooped as I landed, her enthusiasm infectious. You were screaming so loud, she said, laughing. I was terrified. But you did it anyway. That's what courage looks like. Courage. I'd never thought of myself as particularly courageous. I was just Evelyn doing what needed to be done. But maybe there was courage in that too. Maybe there was courage in showing up for this trip, in trying new things, in refusing to accept the limitations others tried to place on me. I snorkeled at Molokini Crater, floating above coral gardens and schools of tropical fish, completely alone in the vastness of the ocean yet not lonely at all. A sea turtle swam past me, close enough to touch, and I thought, this is what I've been missing. This presence. This being fully in my body in this moment instead of always thinking 3 steps ahead to what everyone else needs. Evenings I spent reading on my lanai, drinking wine, watching the sunset. Sometimes I joined other guests for dinner. Sometimes I ate alone. Both felt equally good. I called Margaret most days, giving her updates. You sound different, she said during one call. Lighter. I feel lighter, I admitted. I feel like myself again. Like I found a part of me I'd lost somewhere between diaper changes and parent-teacher conferences. You going to come back? To San Diego? Of course. I mean, are you going to come back to your life the way it was? Or are you going to demand something different? I didn't have an answer yet, but I was starting to think about it. Jessica called on day 5. I was sitting on the beach, my skin tanned and my hair salt stiffened, watching surfers catch waves. Hi, sweetie, I said. Mom. Her voice was tight. We need to talk. Okay. Thomas and I have been discussing Thanksgiving. We can't just not have it. It's tradition. So have it. I told you Thomas can host. Or you can. You're both perfectly capable of roasting a turkey. That's not the point. You always host. It won't be the same without you. Well, this year you'll have to make it work. I'll be back for Christmas. Silence. Then, are you punishing us? Is that what this is about? The question made me set down my wine glass. Punishing you? No, Jessica. This isn't about you at all. This is about me. About me remembering that I'm allowed to want things for myself. But you're our mom. Thanksgiving is when we all get together. I'm your mom every day of the year. One Thanksgiving away doesn't change that. It feels like you're choosing Hawaii over us. Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm choosing myself for once, and you're upset because you're not used to it. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. Did I really hurt you that badly? With what I said? My anger deflated slightly. Yes, I said gently. You did. But it wasn't just that one comment, Jess. It's been building for a while. The assumptions about what I can and can't do. The way you and Thomas treat me like I'm fragile or past my prime. I'm 58, not 88. And even when I'm 88, I hope I'm still living instead of just existing. I didn't realize. She trailed off. I thought I was being considerate. I know you did. But consider this. How would you feel if I started treating you the way you've been treating me? If I suggested you were too young for certain things? Or that you should stay home because you might not be able to keep up? That's different. Is it? Or is it just ageism working in reverse? She didn't answer. After a moment she said, I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. I never wanted to make you feel less than you are. Then stop doing it. Stop making assumptions about my limitations. Stop planning my life around what you think is appropriate for someone my age. Ask me what I want. Include me in things because you want me there, not because you feel obligated. I do want you there. Then show me. Not by inviting me to things you think old people should do, but by inviting me to things you actually want to do. Let me decide if I can keep up. What if you can't? Then I'll figure it out. But at least give me the chance to try. We talked for another 20 minutes, the most honest conversation we'd had in years. She told me about feeling pressure to be the perfect daughter, to take care of me the way I'd taken care of her. I told her I didn't need taking care of, I needed to be seen. By the end of the call, we were both crying a little. But it felt good, like lancing a wound that had been festering beneath the surface. Enjoy the rest of your trip, Mom, Jessica said before we hung up. You deserve it. After the call, I sat watching the ocean for a long time. The conversation with Jessica had shifted something in me. I'd been carrying so much anger, so much hurt, but underneath it was just a desire to be valued. To be seen as still relevant, still vital, still capable of more than babysitting and hosting holiday dinners. And maybe, just maybe, my kids were starting to understand that. Thomas called the next day with a more subdued apology. We didn't talk as long, but the message was the same. He hadn't meant to make me feel diminished, but he could see how his words and actions had done exactly that. We're planning Thanksgiving at my place, he said. Monica's excited to host. And Mom? We're going to tell everyone that you're in Hawaii living your best life. Not that you're being difficult or going through something, but that you're choosing adventure. Because that's badass, and we should have been supporting it from the start. I had to wipe my eyes after that call too. My last few days in Maui took on a different quality. The anger that had fueled my initial decision to book this trip had transformed into something softer but more powerful. A quiet conviction that I had every right to live fully, regardless of anyone's expectations. I took a helicopter tour over the West Maui Mountains, the pilot pointing out hidden waterfalls and volcanic peaks. The island stretched out below me, impossibly green and beautiful, and I thought about how small my world had become. How I'd let it shrink to the size of my children's needs and my own comfort zone. No more. I hiked to the summit of Haleakala for sunrise, standing at 10,000 feet above sea level as the sun painted the volcanic crater in shades of red and gold. The air was thin and cold, and I was breathless, from the altitude, from the beauty, from the sheer accomplishment of being there. An older couple stood near me, bundled in jackets and holding hands. They had to be in their 70s at least. First time? The woman asked me. Yes. You. She laughed. 15th, maybe? We come every year. Never gets old. Never gets old, her husband echoed. That's the secret. Keep finding things that never get old, and you'll never get old yourself. I thought about that as I drove back down the mountain. What were the things that never got old for me? Travel, certainly. Learning new things. Testing my limits. Surprising myself. For too long, I'd let those things fall away, convincing myself I didn't have time or energy or justification for them. But they were what made me feel alive. Without them, I wasn't really living, I was just going through motions, waiting for life to happen to me instead of making it happen. On my last night, I went back to the same beachfront restaurant where I'd eaten that first evening. I ordered the same meal, drank the same Mai Tais, watched the same sunset. But I wasn't the same woman who'd sat there 10 days ago. That woman had been angry and hurt, running away from her family's dismissal. This woman, the one sitting here now, wasn't running from anything. She was running toward something. A life lived on her own terms, whatever that looked like. Kai found me there after his last lesson of the day. He'd become a real friend over the past week, and I told him the whole story. The comment that sparked this trip, the conversations with my kids, the self-discovery along the way. "So what now?" he asked, settling onto the bar stool next to me. "You go home and everything goes back to normal?" "I don't think it can," I said. "I don't think I can. I've remembered what it feels like to be more than just mom. I can't unknow that now." "Good. Don't." He signaled the bartender for a beer. "You know what I see in the ocean every day? People coming alive. People remembering they're more than their job title or their family role. The ocean doesn't care how old you are or what you do for a living. It just asks if you're brave enough to get in. And most people aren't," I said. "Most people aren't. But you are. You got in, Evelyn. Don't get out now just because you're going home." He was right. The real challenge wasn't this trip. It was what came after. It was maintaining this sense of self once I was back in my regular life, surrounded by people who expected me to slip back into the old patterns. But I'd surfed waves. I'd ziplined through rainforests. I'd hiked to a volcano summit and snorkeled with sea turtles and traveled alone and loved every minute of it. If I could do all that, I could maintain my boundaries at home. I flew back to San Diego the next morning, tan and tired and transformed. Margaret picked me up from the airport, taking one look at me and bursting into laughter. "Oh, honey, you're glowing. Absolutely glowing." "I feel good," I admitted. "I feel more like myself than I have in years." "Well, you look it. Your kids are going to lose their minds." She wasn't wrong. I'd agreed to have dinner at Jessica's house that evening, neutral territory, a chance to reconnect without the pressure of hosting or being hosted. I showed up in my new sundress, my skin bronzed, my hair lightened by sun and salt water. I'd bought them each small gifts, a carved wooden sea turtle for Jessica, a bottle of local rum for Thomas, but the real gift I was bringing was myself reclaimed. Jessica opened the door and just stared. "Mom, you look wow. You look amazing." "I feel amazing," I said, hugging her. "Thank you for inviting me." Thomas and Monica were already there, along with Dave. Everyone seemed slightly nervous, like they weren't sure which version of me was going to walk through the door. Over dinner, they asked about the trip. I showed photos on my phone, me on a surfboard, me at the volcano, me with a sea turtle photobombing my underwater selfie. "You surfed?" Thomas said, incredulous. "Like actual surfing?" "Every morning for a week. I was terrible at first, but by the end I was catching waves. My instructor said I was a natural." "Your instructor?" Jessica repeated. "How old was he?" 28. And before you ask, no, there was nothing romantic about it. He was young enough to be my son and just a really good teacher. But we became friends. He reminded me that age doesn't matter in the water, just whether you're brave enough to get in. They exchanged glances, but not the pitying ones from before. These were different. Impressed, maybe. Thoughtful. "I owe you both an apology," I said, setting down my fork. "I was angry when I left. Hurt. And while that's what motivated the trip initially, I want you to know that I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Because your comment, Jessica, as much as it stung, made me realize I'd lost myself somewhere along the way. And this trip helped me find myself again." "I'm sorry, Mom," Jessica said, her eyes bright. "I really am. I never saw you as old or incapable. I think I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing you. Of you getting hurt or sick or... I don't know. I think I was trying to protect you, but I ended up making you feel small instead." "You can't protect me from living, sweetie." None of us know how much time we have. I could spend the next 30 years playing it safe and still get hit by a bus tomorrow. Or I could spend them doing things that make me feel alive. I know which one I'd rather choose. Thomas nodded slowly. Monica and I have been talking about the Bali trip. I held up a hand. You don't have to. Let me finish. We want you to come. Really come, not just be invited out of obligation. We're going to plan it with you, not around you. And if there are things you can't do or don't want to do, that's fine. But we're not going to assume anymore. We're going to ask. I felt tears prickle my eyes. I'd like that. Thank you. And Mom. Jessica leaned forward. I want to go on a trip with you. Just us. Maybe not surfing, I don't think I'm that brave, but something. Wine tasting in Tuscany? A cooking class in Paris? You choose. I'd love that, I said, my voice thick. I'd really love that. The rest of the dinner was lighter, easier. We laughed about my surfing wipeouts and the sunburn I'd gotten despite constant reapplication of sunscreen. They showed me videos they'd found online about Hawaii. Already planning return trips, asking if I'd go back with them. Absolutely, I said. But I'm also going to keep taking solo trips. I loved having that time just for me. I need that. We understand, Thomas said. And we support it. Right, Jess? Right. 100%. Driving home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. My relationship with my kids wasn't magically fixed. We'd have to keep working on it. Keep communicating. Keep respecting each other's boundaries. But we'd made a start. And more importantly, I'd made a start with myself. The weeks after I got back from Hawaii, I made changes. Small ones at first. I signed up for a pottery class I'd been eyeing for months. I started going to concerts again, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. I bought tickets to Japan for the spring. A 3-week trip I'd been dreaming about for years. When Jessica invited me to her intense spin class, I went. It nearly killed me, but I went. And I kept going, getting stronger each week, proving to both of us that I could keep up just fine. When Thomas invited me to a weekend music festival, I said yes. It was loud and crowded and my feet hurt by the end, but it was also fun. We danced together, me and my son, and I saw him see me, not as his mother but as a person who could still rock out to live music. I started dating again, tentatively at first. Nothing serious, but it felt good to put myself out there. To remember that I was still a woman with desires and interests beyond being someone's mom. Margaret and I planned our own adventure. A road trip up the Pacific Coast Highway, stopping wherever we wanted, doing whatever sounded good. No itinerary, no schedule, just 2 women in their 50s choosing freedom. And I kept surfing. Not in the ocean. San Diego's water was too cold for me. But I found a surf pool inland where I could practice. It became my meditation. My reminder that I was strong and capable, and still learning new things. 6 months after that dinner at Jessica's, the whole family went to Bali. All of us together, but this time on equal footing. We rode scooters through rice paddies. Yes, I rode my own, and yes, it was terrifying and exhilarating. We hiked to temples and took yoga classes and stayed in those rustic beach bungalows Jessica had originally thought were too rough for me. One evening, we were sitting on the beach watching the sunset. A tradition we'd fallen into during the trip. Jessica leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm glad you came, Mom. Me too, sweetie. And I'm glad you went to Hawaii without us. I think you needed that. I did. We both did, in different ways. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to be like you when I grow up. I laughed. You're 33. You are grown up. You know what I mean. I want to be brave like you. To know myself well enough to defend my right to live fully. To not let anyone, not even people I love, make me feel less than I am. You can do that now, I told her. You don't have to wait until you're my age. Start practicing now. Make choices for yourself, not just for other people. Take the trip. Try the thing. Say no when you need to. Say yes when you want to. Even if it scares me? Especially if it scares you. That's how you know you're really living. We sat there together as the sun sank into the ocean, painting the sky the same shades I'd watched from my lanai in Maui. But this time I wasn't alone. I was with my family, all of us together, all of us seeing each other more clearly than we had in years. That night, back at our bungalow, I stood on the small balcony and thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. The woman who'd heard her daughter call her too old and felt something break inside her. She'd been broken. But like those Japanese pottery pieces repaired with gold, kintsugi they called it, she was stronger and more beautiful for having been cracked open and rebuilt. I was 58 years old. My surfing instructor was right, I was strong, I just needed to trust my body more. Trust myself more. Trust that age was just a number, and the only person who could truly limit me was me. I heard my daughter's voice from that night months ago, floating through my memory. Mom's too old for this. But standing there in Bali, bronzed and strong and fully alive, I knew the truth. I wasn't too old for anything. I was exactly the right age for everything I wanted to do. And I was just getting started.